Welcome to Checks and Balances, brought to you by Lighthouse Financial. I'm Michael Vincent. That's James Blair. And today we've got Alex Martelli from Martelli & Co. Buyers Agents here to talk about selling your property in 2025. She's going to give us those tips.
We're back in your life, and we're back with the #1 buyer's agent in the country. Alex, how you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Nice to be back again.
It's great to have you back, and I am looking forward to you roasting Michael and I today, mainly Mike. So when we're thinking about 2025, the property market's pretty complicated. So Alex is, on the ground, seeing what's happening. She's going to give us her insights. But then later in the episode, Mike and I have picked a property within a price range and gone, here's how we're going to add value to it.
Well, one of us stayed in the price range.
We will get to it. Alex, before we get to that, I'm very keen to hear 2025. There was the whole hold on till 2025. Things will get better. We are now in March, heading into April. How are you finding the property market?
As a buyer's agent, it's great. I mean, there's so much property on the market, and it was somewhat expected because you saw such a build-up of demand and people holding back selling through 2023 and 2024. And that classic Kiwi idea, you get the home ready, you get the oil back on the decks, and you finish up the bathroom renovation and the sun's out. You think, I'll sell my home in February, March. And there was a real push of property. And certain pockets as well have just boomed. I mean, the North Shore hit record listings. Week before last, they hit over 2,000 listings. So it's a lot of property on the market. That being said, and comfort to people who are selling their homes, good properties are still selling for, a fair price at the moment. There's a lot of demand for the good houses, but there's a lot of stock on the market and a lot of, dare I say it, quite average properties out there as well, or homes that probably should have had a bit more done to them before they went to market as well, which is what you guys are going to benefit from today. But certainly a huge amount of stock and a really good time to be a buyer's agent. And that's because we can go through and qualify and look at what's good. Still quite a tough time to be a buyer because I think people are overwhelmed. They've actually got too much choice. And now they're going, well, how do we know what the right amount is to pay? How do we know what a good home is versus the other 30 homes in our price point? And again, different price points as well. So a lot of stock at that 800 to 1.2. As you get up into the 2 to 3, sometimes actually quite difficult, quite challenging depending on where you are. And as you go further up the price point, again, still very little. If you've got $6 or $7 million and you want a nice home in the eastern suburbs of Auckland, you're still down to only a handful of options. So it's not like it is proportionate across the price bands, but at that entry level, if you're a first-time buyer or an investor, it's a good time to be buying.
Yeah, and we're kind of seeing that as well, but especially with our first home buyers in that 800 to 1.2 kind of range. They'll send me a property and I'm looking at it and I'm going, God, this seems too good to be true. Almost quite a bargain here. And I'll flick a couple of pictures over on TradeMe and they'll be like, oh yeah, there's a power pole in the backyard. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. So just quickly, what is a buyer's agent and how does that work? What's the difference between a buyer's agent and a real estate agent? What is it that you actually do for the customers?
So, and it's interesting because New Zealand's the only country I've lived in where a sales agent might call themselves a buyer's agent, but they are ultimately still remunerated and have a responsibility to their agency and to the vendors. So a dedicated buyer's agent in the traditional sense of what you get in the US, the UK, Australia, is someone who has a fiduciary responsibility to the buyer. They are paid by the buyer, they're engaged by the buyer, and their sole responsibility is to get the best outcome for the buyer, which means the due diligence, making sure you're buying a good quality home and making sure you're paying the right price for it. Ideally, the lowest possible price, but certainly making sure you're paying fair price for it. And I think the buyers that we work with, the thing that is consistent across all of our clients, they tend to be very good at what they do. And that's at all ranges. We've bought a lot of properties at 800 to that 1.1, 1.2. So 50% of our buyers last year were first-time buyers in Auckland. But then it's going right up the spectrum of people who might be in very senior roles and say, look, I don't have time to take phone calls from agents on a Tuesday. I worked with a client last year. He's a very successful businessman, and he rang me and he said, I'm very good at negotiating business deals. I'm not very good at negotiating property. He goes, it's not a market I know. It's not something I specialize in, and I'm not going to get involved in it. So if that's what you do as an expert, negotiate property on behalf of the buyer, I'm getting you to do that for me. So a lot of people, they're time poor. They value professional advice.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we do really well overseas, and it's still emerging in New Zealand, paying money for good advice. Both of you do this. And I think Jeb's talking about your, in terms of wealth management planning, paying someone who understands and specializes in that is a worthwhile investment. So I think people more and more are starting to say, well, actually, if you specialize in buying property, especially for an asset that for most people is the largest asset they're ever going to own, we're going to engage a professional to help us with that. So a lot of people have a fear of negotiating. A lot of people just say, can you come and bid? We're scared of bidding. I've got an auction this afternoon. We're talking about, bidding strategy and tactics. But yeah, a lot of people just say, can you come and bid for us? But most people say, I don't want the stress and the pain and the worry of finding and negotiating a good home.
I love an auction. I know you love an auction. I'd love to buy a house every day if I didn't have to deal with all the debt. Do you get like a real rush? I know you have to be like responsible with somebody else's money, all that kind of good stuff. But do you really enjoy the auction process?
I do, because it's there's so many different tactics.
Yeah.
And my colleague Karen and I at Martelli Buyers, we've both trained to be auctioneers, and we've both been in auctioneering competitions. And we are very socially friendly with a lot of the auctioneers as well. So they're always telling us about what they're seeing. So it becomes very fun.
Yeah.
But there is a tactic to bidding.
Yeah.
It's reading the room. It's understanding what is your strategy, because auctions bring out all sorts of emotions from people. A lot of people who end up bidding more than they ever intended to. And then people who people who don't bid as much as they actually wanted to and end up with regret. Days later. And you see the roller coaster of emotions in people. And so one thing I always agree with my clients, I go, we're going to have a budget. Here's the budget. Here's what I recommend you spend. This is the point. And I always say, what's your maximum figure? And they go, 1.35. And I go, and what if someone bought it for 135 and won? Oh no, then we'd want to pay $2. You go, well, then that's not your maximum budget. So we tease out what is the maximum that we're going to work to. And a bit of advice for people who are looking to bid, don't go in with a round number. Don't bid to 135. Give yourself a bit of like 1362 or 1343, because people will see that in the room and they'll know. Another tip for people who are watching this, don't talk to your partner. When people start talking in the auction room, they're running out of money. They're going, let's just sell one of the kids or a kidney and we'll be fine.
Can we just do the 2-minute noodle thing? Yeah,
exactly. But that's when they're running out of money. So as someone who bids on behalf of my clients, I am looking around the room and going, who's feeling the pinch? And it's a hard thing to say. And it's the tragic thing with an auction, there's only one winner.
Yeah.
There's one winner and everyone else misses out. And that is disappointing, but there is no alternative. So I just try to say to people, go on with a budget and stick to it, but also if you love the home, be kind to yourself and be a bit generous. Don't go stingy on it, because people realize that crashing feeling afterwards when you miss out on the home you love. And I hear too many people go, oh, actually, I would have paid the extra $4,000 or $5,000. Well, then pay the $4,000 or $5,000 in the room. Don't get too tight, but don't overspend either.
Yeah, I can assure you that spending the extra $4,000 or $5,000, if you go through 3 auctions, spend it on the first one.
Yeah.
Because your due diligence costs and your solicitor's costs, you'll rip through that straight away.
Yeah.
I love that as well. You said if you start talking, as soon as I'm in an auction, I see someone pick up a phone, I'm like, they're running out of money. I'm like, they're calling someone to be like, can we make this work? I'm like, yeah. The other thing as well is, like you sort of said, customers ask us for strategies around auctions, and they're like, should I go in hard or fast, or should I wait to the end? I'm like, I have no idea. You have to see how the auction's going, mate. Like, I can't give you advice because it could be totally wrong for what's happening in the room. You might just want to hang back and come in at the last minute when 2 people have just exhausted themselves bidding.
Yep. It is. It is trying to read the room. And unfortunately, the only real way to do that is to go to quite a lot of auctions and learn the process. But I think another bit of advice is, you don't have to follow the increments that the auctioneer is suggesting, and you don't have to match the other people. Another tip for people is, if you've put in bids, say you're going up in lots of 10,000, which I'd actually say you should mix it up, go on and give them 15 or 17, then drop it back 3 or 4, and it's to show that you've got money available, that there is a bit of confidence. But people tend to place a bid, then they look over there, what's that person doing? Oh God, they've said so. Okay, well, we'll bid at the same amount. while they're bidding, in your mind, you should be thinking, if they go up, what is my next bid? So you need to be focusing on what your strategy is, not what someone else is doing. Yeah. But still keeping in mind that, do observe, are they running out of money? How much confidence is there? How much is a bluff? But you do need to be thinking about what your own bid is as well.
So much fun. Alex, I want to jump back to the current market and talk a little bit more about buyers and sellers. I think in terms of it being a buyer's market, that's like a gift and a curse in some respects for the buyers, because it's almost like you have too many options and you're going for that really premium stock. Are you seeing buyers at the moment where they're, because properties are moving a little bit slower and there's too many options, they're chasing those really high quality properties, opposed to maybe when the market's really busy, you just take whatever you can get your hands on?
Yes. People are, the issue with having so much property on the market is that people assume if it hasn't sold under the hammer, under that 3.5-week campaign, then maybe there's something wrong with it. And then they get a real surprise that 4 days later, there's suddenly a multi-offer. They go, oh, I thought I'd have plenty of time to review that home. So people shouldn't assume just because a house has been sitting longer than the auction campaign, then it's going to sit around, you're going to buy it for a bargain. Good homes, you will still pay a fair price. Now, this is a great year to buy because you have a lot of stock and you've not had much movement the last couple of years. So I always say to people, if you find a good home, put a good foot forward for it. Say we are going to go after this property and buy it, because if it's good, you're going to be buying at a, relatively speaking, a good price this year. And you're going to look back in 2 or 3 years and go, what was I squabbling over $5,000 for? It was totally worth it. The challenge of having so much choice is that filtering and due diligence process is tiring for people. If you were looking on the North Shore and there's 2,000 homes, it's a lot of due diligence. So I always say to people, focus on your top 3 things. What are your priorities? Renovations hide a lot. So a lot of people are looking at the homes that are beautifully presented. Well, there's renovations and there's renovations. You can now go to Bunnings and buy a brand new kitchen, or you could go to one of the finest, you could go to Rarebirds or whoever you're going to go see and get the most beautiful, $300,000 renovation on a teeny tiny 2-bedroom unit. So renovations can hide quite a lot as well. The question is, has the house got good bones? Has it got good foundations? Do you understand the area around you? What are your neighbors up to? Are there any big developments about to take place? So, but I think people still get caught up by what they see visually, and they tend to focus on those. But there is a lot of good real estate out there at the moment, but there's too much choice. And people are getting confused. They're making the assumption that something's wrong with it and then discovering actually other people saw value and moved quite fast. Buyers are watching each other. A friend of mine took her house to market recently. It's in Titirangi. It had over 200 groups through the 3 weekends of open homes. Really successful, very pretty little house. She said, can you please be at the auction with me? I said, of course. 5 registered bidders in this market, really good outcome. We waited. It was like, it was tumbleweed as the auctioneer was like, does someone want to give me an opening bid? And trying to extract that opening bid. And then it just dragged on and on. And she was really upset at the time because she wasn't getting to the price that she wanted. But then 4 days later, she had a so we passed on the property, she had a multi-offer and suddenly everyone came forward. Yep. So buyers at the moment need to see what other buyers are doing to set the price. Because everyone's nervous. They're saying, well, how do I set the value where there is so much choice?
I got to say, when you're saying good bones, good locations, it just makes me think I'm about to destroy Mike with the property that I've selected. I want to move on to the sellers in the market. So there is like record high listings. For those that are thinking about getting their home ready for sale, there's a lot of people who go, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that. And some people are just, pouring money down the sink. Where are the areas that is worth spending money if you're thinking about putting your property on the market that buyers actually care about?
This is very boring. Legalities. Make sure you have your LIM and you understand what's in the LIM. The title. Are there any unconsented works? The number of properties that we deal with and we come across, they go, oh, we're not sure on the consenting for that bathroom. Or we probably need to speak to council. I mean, it's incredible how many properties, like I always say, selling your house is like a first date. You want to put your best qualities on display, right? So make sure the house is all tidy and compliant.
Yeah.
So that all the real estate agent has to do is come in and go, look at this perfect house. Look at the clean sale and purchase agreement. Look at all the beautiful legal documents. So I think it's a really important thing to do, because you don't want to get 2 weeks through your campaign, especially in this market where there's so much choice, and the agent's now having to call people and go, oh, actually, there has been a bit of moisture and they did have to do a little bit of work in the basement. Like, it will spook buyers. And a lot of buyers, particularly in this market, you give them one thing that is questionable, they will run for the hills. So making sure that the home is consented, compliant, up to date, you've got a clean sale and purchase agreement. Another thing I really recommend that vendors should do is go get your own building inspection, because chances are buyers are going to get a building inspection. And how foolish will you feel when their report picks up something that you weren't aware of?
Yeah.
What about so I've recently gone through this and decided not to get a building report, because there's the question of whether, if you do get a building report, what might come up in the building report, and what likelihood is there that a buyer does get a building report or just buys the property? What would you say to that sort of thinking?
A building inspection might set you back $600 or $700. No one needs to know that you've got one, but forewarned is forearmed. So, if you go in there and they go, actually, we found high moisture readings in one corner, well, that is worth you looking into, because chances are someone might end up getting a building inspection report. And then if they've got a report and they've found something and they tell the agent has a requirement to disclose that information. So also, I guess there's a bit of an ethical issue here as well, is that you wouldn't want to sell your home and find that next person has to, Mike, you wouldn't want to sell your home and find that someone's got major problems.
And also, like, 95% of people get a building. You'd be in such a small margin of people who didn't get a building report.
But the question is, what percentage of sellers actually do get a building report?
No, it's buyers that I'm talking about, though.
Very few sellers do. A lot of buyers do. I mean, it is recommended. I hear agents giving all sorts of quotes of what percentage of people are actually getting a building inspection report, but we know at least 50% are getting.
100% of the time, 60% of the time.
Exactly.
Of my buyers, it's 90% plus. Yeah.
Well, now more and more banks are requiring it, right? They're saying, well, you need to get a building inspection report.
A lot of banks, if you have put down on the sale and purchase agreement that one of the conditions is a building inspection, will ask for the building inspection. Will ask to see it. And sometimes you don't want them to see the building inspection. But you do have to watch that. And your point, if we could just clip that bit where Alex just says, just get a clean and tidy, compliant house. And if that could be the hold music for Lighthouse on the telephone, I would be so happy. Every time someone's like, well, it's not that the toilet's not, like, technically consented. We lodged the thing, we just never got it back. I'm like, do you know how frustrating that is? Like,
There's even things like a perfect example with the property that I've just sold, which was all disclosed.
Beautiful
in the
backyard.
Sales and
beautiful
purchase.
landscaping.
Non-galvanized nails put in the...
10 years ago, and we've resolved that issue. Thank you.
But the interesting thing was, so we got the deck when I bought the property was pretty much, I guess it's a balcony, it's on the second floor, pretty much falling off. So what we did was we went to council, we got it twice the size. It looks over a Iraqi base and it's really nice. We didn't get the title updated. Is the title
flats plan.
Yeah. Updated to reflect like that the balcony was bigger. So it was a defective
title.
Yeah. And I'm only finding this out from my lawyer as I put the property onto the market. And like I've gone through council, I've paid engineers, I've done all the things, but I didn't know there was more I needed to do when I only found out when I was selling the property.
It's interesting. We've discussed whether, like, what the process is for vendors to be told about this information, because agents try to provide, X amount of information saying, please prepare these documents. And I think some of them could probably go a bit further in explaining things like, why don't you get your own building inspection? Is everything consented and compliant? And they tend to ask the question, but probably not realizing that often vendors don't know. They assume what they've done is absolutely fine. And New Zealand does have a culture of DIY, she'll be right, I can do it myself. But when you go to sell the house, well, Bob's work that he did back in the 80s isn't consented, and people will comment on it, and then it's quite a painful process to go through council to have it all signed off or get the safe and sanitary report. So I think in property there's a lot of terminology and processes that actually aren't understood by buyers and vendors alike, and it's annoying when you have to learn things the hard way through that process.
Yeah. Well, they are some great tips, Alex, but the time has come for Mike and I to give our properties that we would like to buy and the renovation strategy, and you will see all of that right after this break.
If you're thinking about selling, buying, or expanding your property portfolio in 2025, Lighthouse Mortgages can help you.
It's about having the right lending strategy.
And at Lighthouse Mortgages, we can help you structure your finance and obtain finance to make sure you achieve your goals.
Click the show notes below to have a chat today.
Now back to the show.
So it's time to go through our properties that we've selected and for Alex to give us her feedback. Michael, we did get given a criteria. Talk us through it.
Look, we got given a criteria, one of us stuck to it. And for once in my life, I followed the rules. Now, effectively, we had to find a property somewhere in Auckland between 1.3 and 1.4 million total spend. And basically, it was who's going to get the best property, be able to renovate it the best to get the most out of it. So basically, your best investment property in Auckland within that budget.
Okay, so Alex, let me welcome you to 54A, Seacliff Road, Hillsborough, Auckland City. So I will talk you through my logic. So firstly, when I've opened Trade Me, I picked suburbs next to really nice suburbs. So Hillsborough's a nice place to live. I just want to throw out people in Hillsborough. Much love. So this property is one listed back in December. So it's been on the market for
Quite a
3
while.
months. Yep. The second is it's a deceased estate. So while I'm sorry for your loss, opportunity potentially for a buyer. The third is it's a brick home.
Yep.
So I know in terms of the bones, high probability that it will be okay. The next is it's on 1,800 square meters. So we love land, Michael.
It's on 1,800 square meters of cliff, by the way. That's basically unusable land, but thank you. Keep going.
The house isn't too close to the cliff, though. Let's point out, though.
We can't do
James Blair real estate coming out.
do anything
Let me
with that
welcome you.
land, but it is on a big block of land, yes.
But there's some bush, so like the house isn't going to fall off the cliff. I've thought about these
The
things.
bush will
have
fall
the
off
bush.
first.
I've
Good.
thought about these things. Now, so we're looking over Manukau Harbour. It's a beautiful sunny day.
A few white caps out on the old harbour.
Cool in the summer, warm in the winter. When I look at the property inside, it looks like it hasn't been renovated since 1972. And what a year that was to be alive. Why? Because the carpet is razor thin. It's sandpaper-like. It's hurting your feet. If they've got
Great for kids.
They've got no open living. There's walls everywhere, which I love.
It looks like it has an asbestos ceiling, by the way.
That's not true. That is not true, Michael. Alex, I want that removed from the record. And there's yellow couches. Why is there yellow couches? I don't know.
I actually like the couches. The
yellows
couches are very
and-
mid-century modern.
Yellows and
Mustard.
green. So, Alex, I'm looking for things with cosmetic renovations where I don't have to do a lot because these are supple finance hands. I can't do any kind of technical sort of building, and I want to make it relatively easy for myself.
Very
so
good.
I'm thinking some lush carpet, new bathrooms, new kitchen, get looking spick and span.
Okay.
The next component is, and you let me know if I'm overselling this to you, Alex. I feel like I'm going on a bit.
Let's
No,
just look at it.
you're on a
Just-
roll now.
Let me just jump in here. The price guide on this is between 1.65 and 1.8 million. Now, right at the start, I said something about criteria, but between 1.3 and 1.4. James, talk to me, and Alex, maybe chip in here. Do you think this house would go for 1.3 million?
1.4 million.
I'm going to have a very angry real estate agent calling me after this.
Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about property value because this is actually really important. A property's value is worth what that point in time is.
Yep.
So if this property has very little competition in the market right now, and I'm not on top of the Hillsborough market right now, if it actually has a lot of competition, you might end up getting it in the 1.3 to 1.4 because it has been on the market for a while. If the deceased estate has 4 kids and they are all bickering and saying, actually, we have to get 1.6 out of this because we each need 400K, then it's going to be, they might hold out until they get their 1.6. But, and disappointingly, for the purposes of this, let's pretend you are going to buy it between 1.3 and 1.4.
And the kids did want 1.6, Alex, but it's December. Little Johnny's got he's got a car on tick.
There we go.
They've got kids they got to send to private schools. They need the money now. So they're going to take my 1.4. So the other component with this property is I was thinking that there's a office, a kitchen, a second lounge room, and a dining room.
Yep.
And we could Mike and I could roll over with some sledgehammers and just start swinging at walls and just get that nice and open plan. I was also thinking maybe we could put an extra bedroom in, maybe another bathroom. We'll kind of see what the designer says. I'm sure that'll be, it won't be that expensive.
And this is the kind of unconsented work we're talking about.
Oh, no, I'll do it all. I'll do it all legally. Yeah,
okay.
I'll go through the process.
Good.
The other component is downstairs. So there's 2 floors, right? So we've got 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, easily turn it into 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. No worry, under budget, easy days.
You're already over budget on the purchase price.
Downstairs, there is another bedroom with an ensuite and you've already moved on to your properties, Mike.
We've got a bedroom, we've got a laundry utility room, and a WC plus a workshop. 6 by 10 square meter workshop, and another rumpus room 7 by 4 meters.
Yeah. So we're going to do some stuff down there as well. We're going to get that to a nice self-contained unit. Beautiful. Cool in the summer, warm in the winter. And going to have a nice little passive income stream.
You're in the wrong industry.
You're in about
real estate sales.
You're in for about $2 million. Like with everything you've just said, you're in for about $2 million.
It's not a 600K reno, Mike. You're dreaming, mate.
You're in for about No, it's not a 600K reno. It's a 1.5, 1.6 maybe buy, and then you're in for the rest on the renos.
No. Alex is bang on with exactly what she said. I'm right.
What did I say?
I'll buy that for 1.4. That's on the record.
Okay, right. So James's Remuera South home. Look, maybe it's going to go cheap, maybe it won't. I'm saying it's over budget already.
We're going to move on to Mike's property. Now, just for context, Mike has just passed his laptop to Alex, and she has gone, oh, my days. She's completely thrown off. We suspect this property is haunted. Is that right?
Not haunted, but look, let's not downplay it. And what a surprise that the Australian bought the brick, right? However, in New Zealand, Alex, what you know is that Kiwis love weatherboard. So I've got a nice little weatherboard beauty. It's a little bit further south than James's property, so the location's not quite as good. But what you are getting is a house on the front that could be easily painted and cosmetically renovated. You also have land on the back, and I've priced up, I think it was the 52, 48 square meter Williams Corp air home for 155, which can go on the back, fully installed. So I now have 2 properties on the one, 2 houses on the one property. The rental estimate on the front property is between 550 and 600. Let's take the lower end, James, and say it's 550. I can rent the back out for 300. Now, you might be going, Mike,
you're talking too quickly, Mike. The sales pitch isn't going well.
I don't need to sell this.
Take it easy.
It sells itself, James. How much is this property worth? Alex, would you mind reading out what the price range on this property is on the bottom of the trade lead listing, please?
Remembering that.
And just remember, this is yet another deceased estate. Bit of a weird obsession with death over here on the blue sofa.
I think that's a good point. The reason James and I have both chosen deceased estates is quite often you can get a bargain there. The issue, like Alex said, though, is when you have family that are fighting over money, the bargain goes out the window, and it's just an absolute headache.
I just work out if it's a deceased estate by the carpet.
What's the price on this one?
So we've got a home estimate of 685 to 775 with a CV of 850.
Right,
that's great for North Waikato.
Thank you. Let's say we got it for 775. Let's say we spent 155 on the back, putting that air home in, and let's say we spend another 50 on the renovations, tidying it up. That still leaves me with a bit of budget. So what I've done is I've gone, let's buy something closer to the city centre as another little rental. And you'll see I have found a beautiful, freshly renovated, structurally sound unit for $345,000 in Mount Wellington that will positively yield in Auckland. James, I have bought under budget, not 1, not 2, but 3 houses on 2 separate pieces of land. Yep, don't get me wrong. Your cliffside shack that's falling off a hill may have a bit more land to it. I would say I've outdone you on the investment here.
And Alex, I hear leasehold property in Mount Wellington is
It's not even leasehold. It's free. It's unit title.
Go on, Alex. Go get them.
Okay. There are some lovely big assumptions made, which is that everything is going to be cheap, easy to renovate, and consented.
I've got budget left over. Remember, Alex, I'm still 50K under budget. If something goes wrong,
Alex, Mike, let her talk.
So there's a few other factors to throw in here. I think on our lovely home in Otara, it is a case of what's going on in neighbouring properties. Are they about to be developed? Are you going to have a series of townhouses
they're all
built next to you? Okay.
I've looked on Relab. Yeah.
So, and there's all sorts of things that KO might decide to do with that land in the future. They might sell them off privately. They might develop them. In terms of the homes, I mean, both of you have bought houses with good bones. The only thing I'm going to say on James is that it's a brick house, and brick is solid as literal rock. So weatherboard is it is the Kiwi classic. I agree with you on that, but it has to be structurally really good and dry and
risk.
I reckon there's a few boards to be done on
I
that
actually
one.
spoke to the agent and he said structurally it's absolutely fine.
Oh,
it's
if the agent
dry.
said it, then it's fine.
Yeah, but remember, I have come in under budget. So if there is, Em keeps looking at me like it's not an argument. Stuff. I've got money to spare. That's what I'm saying. I can do some renos.
I think in both houses, there's the ability to open them up and modernize, which is great. Yeah. And they both seem pretty well priced. I would probably pick Hillsborough location, but I do also like that Mike's diversified, and there is a lot to be said for that. Now you're going to have, if you're going to rent, say you're going to buy them and rent them out, you've now got two sets of tenants to deal with, and that has its complications. But if you're going to buy them and flip them, then you might end up doing pretty well out of these. Or you, as you say, you flip Sandbrook and keep Mount Wellington as a little investment property.
Yep.
It's really hard to choose because I like to be on this podcast and I'd rather not offend one, but
no.
At least the other will definitely invite me back. Pretending as though budgets mean absolutely nothing.
Well, then I want to buy my beachfront property in Red Beach for $7 million because the budget means nothing, James.
I'm probably actually going to go with Mike because he's going to have three different sources of income off one property. He's got the house at the back, the house at the front, assuming consenting and everything else, and you've got the Mount Wellington unit. So as an investment decision, I like that. James, as a compromise, I like your strategy because you're going to end up building or designing, as you say, two incomes off one property.
When you get some budget.
You did to me, Alex. You can stop now.
My biggest thing with the brick house would be making sure that your unit downstairs can actually be converted into a granny flat, because a lot of people do, and I go to a lot of them, they go, oh yeah, this is absolutely fine. And you go, no, it's not. You know, you need to have proper consenting for a secondary unit, and a lot of people don't realize it. So
look,
please invite me back on the show. I'm
a good loser. What I'd like to say is that Alex is a smart business person. Mike is the person that finds the money for Alex's clients. So, you know, you've done well, Alex, to, you know, keep that relationship going.
You gonna shake my hand or are you gonna Oh. So we've come up with kind of two similar strategies of wanting to add value to get the best price for the sale. Alex, I know you do a bit of this as well. And I want to discuss, what are the things that people add value where they think everyone's going to love this? This is going to add so much money. They do the work, they put in the renovation, and the agent goes, you've spent the money. It's not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
What's a waste of time?
Controversially, swimming pools. Because putting a swimming pool in, at least if you've got the space for it, it's their prerogative as to whether you want the pool. But pools are hugely expensive to maintain and keep. If something goes wrong with them, they're even more expensive. And you've got to really be utilizing, you've got to keep them warm. I'm looking at a property at the moment that doesn't have a pool, and we're speaking to people around. So we're speaking to the neighbours, do you mind giving us access if we want to get a pool in? But I was speaking to a company called The Pool House, and they do some very cool swimming pools. That'll set the purchase it back about $175,000. And that's to get the pool actually craned and put in. But I would never do it as a value add to the property, because most people who are buying a home, say 2, 3, 4 million, can probably afford to put their own pool in.
Yeah.
And then you've also got the consenting, and I've learned a lot about swimming pools and how many litres of water they can have according to consent. So I would say don't put a pool in to add value, allow the next buyer to do that, because also plenty of people do not want a swimming pool.
I just think about the missed opportunity in Otara where you could have, instead of a second dwelling, put a swimming pool.
I actually maintain that 90% of the value of a pool, or of utility of a pool, is not swimming in the pool. It's the fact that you can get a suntan and lie next to a pool without looking like you're just lying on your back lawn.
So you're speaking from experience, mate.
I genuinely think that's what most people use a pool for, more than swimming in it.
Well, it's interesting because also people, when I speak to buyers, they specifically want the pool to be off the living dining area. If the pool's in a different section of the property, they generally do not want it, which tells you it actually relates to what you've said and proves your point that people want a pool that is accessible to their living dining. It's like something nice to look at. It's easy to watch the kids.
Yeah.
Or the boyfriend who's tanning.
Yeah.
But they don't want the pool to be around the back of the house or down below.
You got to watch the pool boy when he comes over to clean the pool,
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
The weird thing is, pool boy comes to our house, but we don't have a pool.
So I think, and going back, and I've been actually thinking while we've been discussing, in some way, James's strategy of buying the house and adding value, if you were to buy to make money to flip, is in some ways, I tell you this, actually a better strategy, because people would buy that home.
Don't come back to me, Alex. It's too late.
No, but what you could do is you could actually turn that into quite a good family home. And as you say, it has got the space, and you could actually open that out to have the living dining area and possibly even put a pool in and maybe do something sort of retaining with some of the back garden. The other thing I liked about the house that you were looking at, it's internally quite large. And one thing I'm seeing a lot of people wanting who've got children, they want a secondary living room. They want a TV room, ideally not next to the parents' entertaining area. That's quite separate, where the kids can go and play PlayStation or watch TV. And pretty much every family I speak to want to have that secondary living space. So quite important. And definitely I would put that in above a swimming pool.
All right, Alex, to finish up, I've got a quick fire round of this or that in terms of what adds value. Pool or extra bedroom?
Extra bedroom.
Media room or tennis court?
Media room.
Garage conversion or home office?
Home office.
Last one, big backyard, manicured gardens or modern kitchen?
Modern kitchen.
Awesome. So I think politically very done between keeping us both somewhat happy, Alex.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. If there are those out there who are sick of losing and not getting their home, how do they reach out and find you?
Find us at martellibuyers.co.nz or follow us on our LinkedIn page. Certainly via our website is the easiest way. So it's www.martellibuyers.co.nz.
Great. Okay. And we'll also pop that in the show notes. So it's nice and easy. You can just click on those. Much love to Lighthouse for sponsoring this episode. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, give us a review, give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.